Today's message is titled Winning the Game of Thrones. Are there any Game of Thrones fans here? A few. Even if you aren't, there's a lot of people around the world right now talking about this. You might have heard about it or read about it. This HBO series that just finished an 8-year run had epic battles as well as romance and suspense. But the big question throughout the show was who is or who will be the ruler of the 7 kingdoms? In essence, who rules the world? We've been talking about the power of power this month, one of the 12 powers available to be accessed by us to enhance our lives or otherwise affect our world. Other names for this power are the power of dominion and the power of mastery. The Game of Thrones gives a number of examples of this power of dominion, used in ways that ultimately backfire on the user. There was one ruler who lost everyone that ever might have mattered to her as she clawed her way to the top. She made it to the top of the heap, at least for a time, but getting there left her full of bitterness and, for the most part, alone. There was another who decided it was her calling to free the world of tyrants. She got many to rally behind her as she ruthlessly and without mercy removed any who would not swear undying loyalty to her. She was a tyrannical liberator from tyrants. She was not aware that she was the enemy that she was fighting. This was to her detriment. Each of the 12 powers are present within all of us, and we use them all the time, intentionally or not. Being aware of ourselves and where our consciousness is focused would enhance our ability to use our spiritual tool set in alignment with our goals. Charles Fillmore saw the power of power as energetically vibrating our intentions and desires out into the world. He primarily associated it with the spoken word, but any energetic emanations from us that influence people and events in our lives could be seen as an expression of power. This month we affirm, I have the power to create my world. We are reminded that we are actively participating in creating the many aspects of our lives. Our bodies are products of our DNA, the food we eat, and the environment we live in. Yet we are also aware that a large part of our experience in our bodies has to do with what's going on in our thoughts and in our emotions. As we deal with the situations in our lives and relationships with others, the way we think about those situations and respond to them affects our overall sense of well-being, our emotions, and that our ability to think and make decisions. And those thoughts and emotions in turn are affecting our bodies. What about the world outside of me and the people in my life that I interact with? Do I have anything to do with the world out there as well? Some of you know about the work that I do. I look at the top internet search trends each day to get a picture of what we collectively are focusing on. And I turn that into a forecast for tomorrow's stock market and general news themes. It's actually possible to correctly say whether tomorrow's market will be up or down based on our collective consciousness. It's correct about 2/3 of the time. For stock traders, 2/3 is a substantial edge. A couple of years ago, I was looking into applying this idea to individuals to see the relationship between our consciousness today and our experience in the next day or two. If we can get general future news themes from collective consciousness, why couldn't we get personal news themes from personal consciousness. A few friends volunteered to help me, and each and every day we all answered a few questions about our day. How busy were we? How calm were we? And a few other things. We started noticing some useful information about the general themes of our days yet to be. 3 general themes showed up for each upcoming day. The main task of the day, the challenge of the day, and the type of circumstance of the day. It was kind of like a horoscope, but generated by each person's own answers about how they thought of a day they just finished experiencing. This was exciting. I started trying to figure out how to turn this into an app that people could use. Yet something happened that changed my mind about this. Every winter solstice, Daniel and I find a good spot to watch the sunrise and welcome the sun into the new solar year. The night before, I was looking over our answers and what they meant for the next day. It struck me that tomorrow's themes looked somewhat intense and like what could possibly be a car accident. I was concerned enough that I was considering the idea of changing our plans and not going anywhere. I prayed about it, and I got one of those rare, clear answers. It said, go anyway. And so I did, and we did. It was a beautiful sunrise. On the way home, traffic started to slow. Behind us, a fully loaded semi-truck did not slow down. It smashed into the back of the little Kia we were in. Our glasses flew off our heads and into the back seat. The seats we were sitting in got a little twisted. The trunk was in the back seat. We were a bit shaken up, but otherwise okay. Yes, there indeed was a car accident. Later that day and over the next few days, we were a bit sore. Since personal health insurance doesn't cover car accidents, we had to go to the attorney route and went to a chiropractor a few times a week over the next several months. Yet since then, we have made a full recovery. So why did I get that message to go anyway? In the days following the accident, I was even more excited than ever to make an app out of this idea. We continued with the research, but I noticed that before each day was over, I was checking to see how tomorrow was going to be like. This made me less able to live today for today. I noticed a feedback loop beginning that didn't look like it was going to end well. As I learned more, I went back to that car accident day and reviewed it. Daniel's task for the day, he was driving, was not knowing, and his challenge had been maneuvering. It was his task for the day to not know what was ahead and not to try to do anything about it. Daniel had not seen the truck coming until the very last seconds as he briefly noticed a large truck suddenly filling the rearview mirror. If he would have seen it, he might have tried to get out of its way, and something much different and much more serious could have played out. It dawned on me that if he had been hyper alert to the possibility of a car accident, he might have seen it coming, and in this case, that could have had a tragic result. My conclusion was to stop this line of research. It's not knowing exactly what we're creating that is going to help us out. Yes, I am co-creating my reality with God. Yes, I have a part in what is happening in my life, yet there's a bigger picture than what I think I'm doing. There is more at work here than I can keep track of, and trying to control it all would probably not be helpful. I stopped that work on the connection between individual consciousness and events, but what was learned from that has since turned into new discoveries. The latest exploration is what makes a sports team win or lose to another team. The money we received from the accident has allowed Daniel to work full-time gathering data on sports teams and exploring this avenue. We don't know where this is heading, but we are learning a lot in the meantime. You may recall that I mentioned that by watching collective consciousness, it's possible to predict the direction of tomorrow's stock market about 2/3 of the time. The same thing is showing for sports teams. By looking at the social media posts that each team puts out ahead of a game, in a sense the team's attitude or consciousness, it's possible to predict which one will win about 2/3 of the time. I'm wondering if this means that as individuals or groups that we have a direct impact on most of the circumstances in our lives, somewhere around 2/3. The good news is that we have the power to create our world, that we have a lot more to do with both the circumstances of our lives and the quality of the world we live in than most of us could imagine. The other good news is that this would mean that there's a good chance that individually we are not in control of everything that happens. This is good because it reminds me not to assume that I caused or created every situation I find myself in. It also cautions me not to think I know the cause of what happened to somebody else. This way I can focus on my response to the current moment. What can I do to recenter myself spiritually? What can I do to feel at peace today? I don't have to blame myself or obsess about how I possibly could have wanted this in my life. I find that idea a relief. Yet I don't want to discount how powerful we are. Jesus showed us over and over what kinds of things we can do from a place of spiritual connection. It's so easy to dismiss those stories as long ago, just a metaphor, or perhaps as unattainable until some future date of enlightenment. Have any of you ever experienced Reiki or some other form of hands-on healing? What about an answered prayer with a physical healing? What about things working out just in time, or exactly how they needed to when it seemed impossible that things could work out? And then there's more spectacular things, the special effects kinds of things. You probably heard the story of Jesus calming a storm. Have you heard of people that interact with the weather today? There are Native American tribes who until just a few years ago were inviting outsiders to watch them do a rain dance. Visitors would be in awe as clouds would appear overhead shortly after they started. There's a story of a tornado approaching Unity Village, and 2 people were up in the tower. They did not have a chance to get into the basement. One of them, without thinking about it, faced the storm and told the storm, "Peace, be still." Apparently it listened. A friend of mine was in her backyard as the skies turned dark and green, signaling an approaching tornado. The trees in the yard started blowing in a circular fashion around her, and she did a similar quieting of the storm. The people of Atlanta a few years ago were experiencing a drought so severe that they only had about a month before the city would run out of water. The governor of Georgia organized a prayer vigil at the Coliseum. The atheists were really upset that he was perpetuating such idiocy, that a prayer could change anything about a situation. Within a couple of days after the vigil, it rained. The drought was over. When we use our power with intention from a place of connection, amazing things happen. When we connect with Spirit in prayer, miracles can happen. Sometimes amazing or miraculous things happen without any conscious intervention on our part. I was flying in a plane a few weeks ago and was in the process of putting on my seatbelt. I had my hand up, and all of a sudden I noticed an earring had fallen into it. It was my right earring. This was such a small thing compared to a drought-ending rain, but it was amazing nonetheless. It could easily have fallen off down onto the floor of the plane and been lost. It's these kind of things that give me the feeling of being watched over and cared for. Some might think it naive, but I live for those moments. As powerful as we are, I find it comforting that the one power behind all things is everywhere present, including what is unfolding in my life. I might not always understand it, and I certainly might not always like it. But things are as they should be in this moment. They couldn't be any other way. If you would like to develop or enhance any of your 12 powers, start with expanding your awareness of presence. You could do this by starting a daily practice of meditation, a few minutes each day. Add a reading to it, such as the daily word, to give yourself a spiritual focus. Those that follow the Course in Miracles have a workbook with a focus for the day that they can use. Check in with Spirit throughout the day, and especially check in before making any major financial or time commitments. If you pray about it, looking for an answer, it will come to you in some form. Wait for it. Finally, take classes or workshops that will help you to clear away the noise that clutters your mind and closes your heart. The Radical Forgiveness workshop that was just offered here was a good one for that. Another would be classes and workshops by Martha Creek. She'll be visiting this area in July and presenting something at Unity of Stockton. To win the Game of Thrones is to realize that you are a powerful being with great influence in your world. Yet there is really just one power and one presence in all of the world. That one is on the throne. To the extent you are in alignment, you win. To the extent you have the space within your consciousness to allow that one is expressing through you as you, and in everyone and everything else, it can't possibly matter whether there is a throne or a winner. At that point, it won't matter at all that you are powerful. Because wherever you are, power is. Thank you.